Hello, and welcome to Flowcast. I'm your host for today's show, Sister Rose Miriam Schulte. I'm pleased to have as my guests with me today 4 young men who are members of the religious congregation of the Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate. Brothers Edwin and Alfred come from the African country of Zambia. 𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿, also from Africa, comes from Namibia, and Michael grew up in the USA and is most recently in Texas. Just as a side note, 𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 and Michael are sharing a computer and a speaker, and Edwin and Alfred are doing the same. Kind of a different arrangement than what you may be used to. I, Sister Rose Miriam, have had the joy of serving as a facilitator of understanding and growth of vowed religious commitment with the Oblate Formation community for some 10 years. I became acquainted with these 4 young men in 2024 when, after a period of pre-novitiate, they became canonical novices living in community together with their formation directors in Godfrey, Illinois. They, with their congregational leadership, continue to mutually discern their calling to this international and intercultural missionary congregation. Welcome, brothers. It's wonderful to be with you. A bit more context. We, the Springfield Dominicans, have taken on as a general chapter commitment the goal of learning to be more intentionally intercultural in the way we Dominicans live our religious life. My Oblate brothers, young though they may be, have had more experience of actually living interculturally than I. So while I may embrace the theoretical construct, they have the lived experience. Together today, we hope to share with you something of a definition of interculturality and an understanding of what it means to live interculturally, why the Oblates believe it is important for their life of ministry in the church and a prophetic witness to the world, hopefully some personal rewards and challenges which they have experienced in living interculturally, and perhaps most intriguing, what does that look like for them in a day-to-day religious life experience? Finally, is living interculturally only for religious men and women? So we're going to start off today so that you hear the voices of all 4 initially with a brief question. Brothers, what's the first thing, essential thing perhaps, that comes to your mind when you even hear the term interculturality? Alfred?
Okay, thank you very much for that nice question, Sister Rose. And to start with, for me, what comes into my mind when I hear the term intercultural living is a call to make an intentional, faith-based commitment to live for otherness. So I go outside my own environment with my own world in response to the challenge of multicultural living. So that's what comes into my mind first and foremost. But I would like to begin with how Pope Francis wrote in the encyclical Laudato Si, paragraph 85, which says, the creation is the book authored by God, and its letters are the created things. What I mean is the entities that appear in our experiences. It could be human beings, trees, rocks, grass, and so on. So when I read that paragraph 85, a lot of things, a lot of questions came into my mind. So, and I think this is very important, like to approach the concept of intercultural living with that mindset. First and foremost, is very important. So, what does he mean? So, what was in his mind by then? He was thinking like, you know, all the letters, like if you want to write something, a word for instance, all those letters that you use are very important for that particular word. So if, for instance, I want to write a word Alfred, A is very important. If I miss that letter, meaning the whole meaning is really disturbed. So each letter in that book that authored is very important, and there is no letter in that book that is superior than the other. All of them are important for us to find the meaning in our lives. So when I apply this concept into the concept of intercultural living, I think all of us, we come from our own environments. A good example that I can give is us here. We are three in this community. Brother Edwin, myself, and Eliakim, we come from Africa. And all of us, we come from, we come with our own worlds, different worlds. And in those different worlds, we have also different cultures, different experiences. We come together intentionally for a mission. So we don't just happen to meet together for fun, something like that. No, there is a mission to achieve. And what is this mission is otherness, of which is we go outside our own world, our own experiences to achieve a communion.
Thank you, Alfred. I think your emphasis about how you see the dynamic of living interculturality is really very important, because so often I think we have a tendency as individuals to think about what it is we have to give up in order to be present to the other. And you're offering a very different view of that in terms of the mutuality and the togetherness. Ed, how about you?
To respond to your question, the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear of the concept of intercultural living is that there should be a distinction between multicultural living and intercultural living, in the sense that when we talk about a multicultural context, we're talking about the presence of different nationalities, different cultures, and different ethnic groups that live together with the goal of tolerance, or with the goal of assimilation and accommodation, wanting to live together. But the concept of intercultural living, on the other hand, is really centered on how people are able to live together in a mutually enriching way, and challenging relationships on both ends, which have the end goal of the reign of God. So, in principle, really, it's at the heart of intercultural living is that we want to put at the heart of everyday experiences the reign of God, where each and every person comes in with diversity, but at the end of the day, able to exist together. And I would go as far as saying that this is not exclusive to religious congregations or religious men and women. It is something which I believe can be achieved in any environment where people exist. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope to go back to that before we finish here today, because I think it's really important that we spend some time thinking about whether or not, in fact, this interculturality is something that's meant just for religious. Michael, talk to us a little bit about your views.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear interculturality is discernment. So it's interesting. We've talked about the intercultural experience coming from another country, entering into a different country. For instance, my brother's coming from Africa, entering into the U.S. I was born and raised in the U.S. It's a 2-hour flight from where the novitiate is to my parents' house. It's very close by, but that doesn't mean I'm not living an intercultural experience too. There's a there we had a presenter during one of our inter-novitiate community gatherings, Dr. Robert Schrader. He's a SVD missionary out of Chicago, and he gave us this analogy of entering into someone's garden. You take your shoes off before you enter into someone's garden to be respectful. And in this garden, there are seeds, which are sort of good things, and weeds, which are some not so good things. So every garden has seeds and weeds, and it's really a metaphor for different cultures. So the whole point of this analogy is to recognize within my own culture there are some very good things, and there are some not so good things. And within another person's culture, there are some very good things, and there are some not so good things. And our goal is not to go through and start pulling out the weeds in each other's garden. That doesn't get us anywhere. But the point why I say this is discernment is it's twofold. It helps me being around my brothers to look at my own culture and say, okay, this is some areas where we might need to grow. And then also to remember and be mindful. It's like, there are certain things about my brothers and the way they might do some things that really aggravate me. I'm not afraid to admit that. And I don't have the best poker face, so they probably know what I'm talking about. But that's okay, because I know it's not something I need to change. It's not something I should change or should fix. It's to be comfortable meeting each other as we are and learning to live peacefully together.
Mhm. Thank you. I think your notion, your expressions, actually your transparency from someone who lives in this USA culture, which of course I share with you, is really an important contribution to this whole conversation. And I'm going to turn to 𝐻𝐧𝐞, I think, who would be the first to say that although we in our North American white culture may somehow bundle all of Africa together, 𝐻𝐽𝐻𝐾 comes from Namibia, which is a separate country, close by but separate from Zambia. And so I'm sure some of your perspectives are diverse even yet. So 𝐻𝐽𝐻𝐾, what would you like to say to us at this point?
At this point, for me, when I hear the word interculturality, first of all, is to live with people who do not look like us, to be able to share the same space with those who do not speak like us, with those who do not have the same gifts like we do, to live together with those who were never raised like us. Just like that spirit of saying, let me accommodate him or her. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say that when I hear the word interculturality is that when I look at Michael, when I look at Alfred or Edwin, I have to see him as a brother. Or when I look at you, Sister Ross, I have to see you as a sister, instead of me seeing something different. So instead of me looking at you and say, she's white, she's black, she doesn't speak like me, she doesn't have the same gifts as I expected, but to include someone or others the way they are. So, with the spirit of saying, we have to create an environment for us to live together. So, that makes it to say we can't actually talk about interculturality when we have all those little differences. Because those little differences, even if you differentiate someone the way you speak and the way the gifts that you have and someone doesn't have them, or how you were raised, or how someone's background was is not different or the same as yours. So interculturality cannot appear in that space. But if you accommodate someone for who they are, regardless of all their weaknesses or whatever they have, but if you look at someone as a sister or a brother, that makes interculturality to be lived well and perfect.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I can say
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Well, each of you has uncovered some very important aspects of what it means to understand and then to live interculturality. I think it was you, 𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿, who mentioned an accommodation of the heart, which reminds or prompts me to ask, obviously, your understanding of interculturality and adjusting to or living into the aspects go a whole lot further than the color of skin or even the learning of a different language. So, talk to us about some of the personal attitudes or skills or conversion of mind of heart changes, adaptations, accommodations that you have felt called to make in order to live intentionally. Any one of you.
Well, let me just pick it up where I left. As for me, uh, with the experience I have in the novitiate, I can say that I have learned skills to say, first of all, the starting point is to get together. Being able to to live together, first of all, before every other learning starts. The starting point is to get together, regardless of where we come from or which country, but to be at the same space, in the same community. And that is where the starting point is. And then after that, what I have learned is that, as someone said earlier, not trying to assimilate to other people's culture, but actually try to accommodate them, include them. Include them, that means even you, they will also include you, regardless of your own culture. So that what I'm trying to say is that when I don't try to assimilate myself with their culture or making them be assimilated to mine, that means I'm trying to go beyond myself. Like I want really to have that an idea and mind of learning. I want to know someone better. So when I want to know someone better or to understand something better, even though I don't abandon my own culture of origin, that means we are going to share the space very peacefully and in harmony. So that means it will begin with respect. So when I respect someone's culture or someone's personality, and also include that someone into my own space, and then in return they will also include me. That means there will be harmony at the end of the day. So
Thank you. Ed, I could tell you wanted to say something in that regard.
Oh yeah, I was going to mention to say I think some of the personal attitudes or skills that I came to acquire from the experience that I had living in an intercultural community. First and foremost, I'm going to say it's hard work and commitment. We have to be very intentional and very committed to the fact that it's going to be challenging. It's going to be something that's somewhat contrary to the social setting that we come from, where everything is as we were taught as norms from back home. And we have to be open enough to the idea that we are going to learn new things. And what is going on is actually something that's going to benefit us in the future, because if now more than ever the world needs a community where everyone can be considered as one family. And another aspect that I'm going to mention is that there is a certain sense of diplomacy in the way we are going to interact with each other, is because first and foremost, each one of us is an ambassador or a representative of the family that we come from. You know, we represent the upbringing that we received from home. So we are going to bring that into this space, and that's what I would say the good seeds that we come with. But also our households equally have some cracks and some difficulties. So I'm going to bring that with me as well, and that's where there's going to be aspects of compassion and compromise. I should be able to say, well, definitely this that I learned is not something that is inherent to me. It's something that my culture taught me. So to be able to move away and a little bit closer to learn new things after understanding where the difference and the history of things come from. And then there should be a common vision as to why we're living this intercultural life. If we all establish from the very beginning that the vision that we're doing this is for the sole purpose that we could be able to minister to one another. We should be able to share God's love to the people that we encounter. And this is the vision that the Son of God came down on here to live for us. Therefore, as we go on doing our day-to-day experiences, we are going to have a common understanding that the sole purpose of this is for us to be able to cross our boundaries and to bring God's love to people who do not have the same experience or social backgrounds as we have. So it involves a lot of openness, a lot of commitment, and embracing the challenges that come with the fact that some of the experiences are going to be somewhat unnatural.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you've experienced. You've done a great job of speaking to the values that you see in interculturality. I think every one of you would admit, but it tain't easy. So, Alfred, can you name one or two things for us that you found difficult or challenges within the everyday living together with people of other cultures?
According to the experience that I've had so far, living intercultural is a cross on its own, meaning it requires a lot of sacrifices, like others have mentioned, like intentional commitment. But I would put it in this sense, like it requires a lot of sacrifice. We all come with differences, but in this culture that we intentionally create is all about striving to achieve oneness, which is not really easy to do. And I can give an example from the Gospel of John 17, chapter 17, when Jesus was praying for his disciple the night before his arrest. He was praying for his disciples to say, Father, I'm consecrating these disciples to you so that they may be one. And that brings a lot of questions into my mind. And I can say, like, Jesus had experienced a lot of discrimination during his own time. For him to reach at that extent of consecrating his disciples to God the Father, to say, I'm giving them to you so that they may be one. And I see that is not easy for us human beings. And we find that challenging to be one. Sometimes we want to be assimilated or to be dominant, to dominate other people's culture. Sometimes we face such temptations each and every day. So I think this is really a challenge that I would say. The second challenge that I've had so far is, coming from Africa, we have different cultures that side. And I mean, here in the United States of America, they have got, their own unique cultures, So for someone from African countries coming here, how do I adapt a culture that is more individualistic, some kind? Because where we are coming from, we live like communally. We do everything communally. That is what we emphasize. Everything is done communally. We eat communally. Whatever we have, we share communally. But we come here, we find that close relationship that we share in Africa, here is something different. So I see like that is a challenge. In as much as we talk about adaptation, yes, theoretically, it's really something easy to talk about it, but to put it in reality, it becomes a challenge. So far, that's what I've really found out like something challenging to me. Yes, I understand I can adapt to that, but how?
Yes. Yes, very well said. Thank you. And what you're reminding all of us is that all of your activity, all of your thinking, all of your intentionality is deeply rooted in a sense of commitment based in the values, the Christian values that you have. Michael, I can tell you want to talk.
Oh yeah, there's 2 points I want to make. The first point, something I've struggled with Well, something to know about me is I'm a very left-brained person. I like to make sense of things. I like to let me reset. I like to make sense of things. I'm a numbers guy. I like to try to understand things. Sister Rose, I know
Mhm.
you're laughing inside because you know me. But
That's
something
an
that
affirmation, not laughing at you.
but one thing I've noticed is interculturality isn't the answer to everything. There's a phenomenon we learned about. We call it playing the culture card. So attributing everything to my culture. Say like, yeah, I'm an American. American culture is more individualistic. That it is what it is, um, and that's not right. And it's not. It doesn't help to grow. You can't attribute everything to your culture. And something that I've sort of learned is is that when dealing with or when interacting and encountering people from other cultures, you have to be careful not to stereotype. So my brothers can't say, well, all Americans are 6'5" and overweight. That wouldn't be a fair thing to attribute to the American culture. And there's a difference between one's culture and one's individual personality. And I think for me, like my modus operandi was, well, I'll give people the benefit of the doubt. Like if they're acting in a way that I think might be wrong, or in a way that rubs me the wrong way, or I whatever. Well, it's not their fault. It's their cultural upbringing. And while it seems nice, it seems like you're giving someone the benefit of the doubt. You're stereotyping, or I have stereotyped when I've done that. And I think something for me that I've learned is there's a difference between saying this is something because of somebody's culture and this is something because of someone's personality. And again, like I said, the first thing that comes to mind with interculturality is discernment. How do you discern what is part of culture, what is part of personality? And that's really one. It ties into one of the biggest struggles I've had. Is again, we're living in the United States of America. Um, in our house, we have an international culture. When we step outside and go to the store, we're immersed in the American culture. And there are certain things from my upbringing. I remember when I was a little kid, like probably 8 years old, my mom would always, like, if someone was walking down the street and did something wrong, my mom would say, "Never do that, Michael. Don't do that." Um, and she taught me like to be mindful of how others perceive me, to be mindful of following different norms, which is I'm grateful for that. But there's also something in my head anytime I see someone. When we go out, there's always this part of me that says I need to conform, and it's good to follow the norms. And I get a little uncomfortable if I see one of my brothers um, doing something that's not like a typical American thing. And it's about dying to myself, saying, okay, they can do that. They can make that mistake. If it's a mistake, they can do that if they want. And it's not my place to say, like, hey, that's wrong, or hey, I'm
Thank you.
uncomfortable.
You bring up a very important part in terms of the need for each of us in the terms of our ongoing discernments in life and our own growth, to really know ourselves, um, to engage in what we call together emotional intelligence, as well as other forms of intelligence. And we could go on in that conversation, but what it says to me is the struggle that all of you are experiencing in integrating your notions of interculturality with your commitment, and in primarily your commitment with mission activity or ministry activity. So let's talk a little bit about how does living interculturally prepare you for ministry, for mission, as an oblate missionary?
Uh,
Edwin.
Oh, okay. To begin with, I'm going to say there's different stages to living in an international space or in an intercultural community. First and foremost, when you just arrive, there's going to be things that are going to be very shocking, things that are going to surprise you. So you have to be patient enough to learn how things are done, and then after you identify with how things are done in that place, you now begin to bring and share into that space the good things that you have. So from my experience back home in Zambia, the portion of the country where I come from was evangelized mostly uh, by by the missionary oblates of Mary Immaculate, who came from the United States. So for me to be part and parcel of this charismatic family meant that I was going to participate in this missionary life. So this experience is important as far as how my ministry going forward or how I'm going to participate in this life is concerned. Is because I'm going to find myself in spaces that are different other than my own household back home. I'm going to be in places, even in Africa, where I have to live with people who do things in a different way. But even in those differences, how can I find a way of bringing Christ in these different environments? So to live in an international community for a year means the first 1 week, 2 weeks, the first few months will teach me something about how to approach things, and then gradually we have to learn how the success comes in all the experiences that we have. You know, how do we deal with tension if it comes? How do we deal with celebrations? How do we show love and compassion? How do we, you know, all these things moving together? Even our liturgy, how our liturgies are infused with our culture. So this experience of living in a community with my brothers who come from different backgrounds is going to enrich me to live in an environment which will be different from my own. Even if I am to be in my own country, this experience now shows me how you can minister to God's people who do not seem to have a same background as my own. How am I going to minister to the poor? And these poor may look different than myself, may speak a different language, may understand things differently. So, like I said at the very beginning, is that the goal and the vision that we have is that we are going to use this experience to be able to bring God's love to people out there. And then sometimes the people out there are going to be of a different culture. So I believe this is very much significant and helpful as far as what the world needs right now. I would use an example, even of in your case, Sister Rose, at your age, being able to get into this digital space and to bring these conversations out is a skill that is helpful in how you are ministering to this context, which I can term to be a different culture also.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you used the phrase, I think, something about religion being infused into the culture. We only have a few minutes left, and so I want to expand the conversation a little bit broader and perhaps maybe more objectively, if there is such a thing. Um, Eliakim, you mentioned earlier something about how the intercultural living or understanding of interculturality could have benefits for the political, economic, social, spiritual world in which we live. Could you expand on that a little bit more?
Oh yeah, what I said earlier when we met before today, uh, this is generally as you asked, and I think it'd be very, very helpful since we as religious people we live interculturality living in our communities, but back into the society or in our countries or in all the neighborhoods that we live in, there are all those little things that exclude us, or exclude other people. I can say like that, or divide us in categories to say this is a poor neighborhood, this is a rich school, this is a such kind of things. Even our social spaces are different. Even our way of living is different. The schools where we go and the academic is, the schools where we send our children, such kind of things. So it it also differentiated in a way that in order for us to live together, it's difficult. So it will be very helpful if interculturality expands into the world and into the space of like political mind idea people, and also just in all the communities, villages and towns and cities, to say that acknowledging each other as human beings first of all, like our founder always used to say, like us with information, like teach young men to be human first of all, teach them to be human, and then after that, when they are human, teach them to be Christians, and then when they are Christians, make them to make efforts to be saints. So in that line, I can say that there will be very big amount of joy in every community if all people are given equal opportunity to say what we have, not let us not create a difference on it. Those who are smart, they are here. Those who are average, they are here. Those who are lower, they are here. But why can't we just help everybody? Why can't we just live together? Why can't we just accommodate everybody? That is a space. Because even now when I go outside there for to the shopping mall, the difference you can see it clearly, the poor, they are notified easily, and those who are hungry, they are notified easily. The homeless are notified easily, because those who have much are not willing to share the same space with those who don't look like them. Understand? So
Mhm. Thank you very much. You've been very explicit in expanding our notions of interculturality into the various cultures and social milieus in which we live. I'm prompted to ask one more question in that regard. What could make the difference? What attitude of mind or heart needs to be at the heart of being willing to practice interculturality? Any one of you?
it's a good question.
And I'm tempted, you know me, I'm tempted to say one word.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's a good question.
I
Okay,
think,
Alfred.
yes, I think one attitude that I would like to talk about is realizing that we are all one in God. If we develop that kind of a mindset of knowing, we all find reference in God. And no one chose to be born in these areas where we come all from. We just found ourselves in those territories, places where we come from. So I think that one is really something that can really help us to understand, to say, why did I find myself here? Meaning, somebody put me there. So what I'm trying to say is, in as much as we emphasize talking about intercultural living, we have to understand that we have these differences, which are our blessings, because it is God who has given them to us. So we bring those differences that we have together. Instead of working against with them, we work with them. That's the issue. I think if we can do that, it can really help us to achieve
Mhm,
the goal of
mhm.
intercultural living.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else in 15 seconds or less? And they all laugh
I'll
at
give
me.
it a shot. It might be 20.
Okay. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I would say relationship is definitely something that needs to happen. In my experience, if I don't have a good relationship with someone, that makes interculturality difficult. If I have a very close relationship with someone, that makes it very easy. Well, easier, I should say. I know definitely in the novitiate, in forming relationships or in forming relationships, it's funny. Like a lot of times I wake up in the morning, it's like, wow, how did I get here? Like this is just wild. Like I'm just looking around in the chapel. It's like, yeah, this is wild. Um, but really, it surprises me in the fact that I've been able to form friendships with people that are from halfway around the world. Um, so I'd say that being open to relationship and being open to being a little surprised.
Thank you. Excellent.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But the last one, I can say that if I was a doctor or maybe a scientist, I can say uh, maybe we can make maybe some injections or some doses that are filled with kindness and compassion to inject everybody, so that
Yes. Yes.
everybody can actually be kind, can be kind to someone and be compassionate to those who are not like him or her. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
that's what it is.
Thank you, Eliakim. Ed?
For me, I think what I would say is that when God created everything, He looked at it and said it was good. So each and every one of us has this ordained aspect of in our hearts to be good. We have the capacity to be good, and I think it's just if each and every person can come together and believe that our diversity can be engaged and we can live together as one, as a people created in the same image of God, as a people who, though have different views on various issues, as a people who may not share the same political, religious, or ideologies, at the end of the day, there should be a space on the face of the earth where we can coexist and live together in harmony.
Mhm, mhm. Thank you, one and all. We do need to stop. But Alfred, Edwin, Eliakim, and Michael, thank you so much for your personal and transparent sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pray for us.
You have shared a lot of wisdom with us. We've heard you speak about your value of living interculturally as something to be treasured and intentional. And your listeners, as well as myself, will take with us your challenge to seek the opportunities of living the benefits of interculturality in our own civic and faith communities as we strive to live a value centered life in a very troubled and often divided and even violent world. Our listeners will find some resources in the show notes for this edition of Flowcast, wherever you found this show, and at our website, flowcastlisten.org. If you've enjoyed the episode, please tell your friends about it, send them the link, invite them to subscribe so that they don't miss a single episode. A big thanks to the Flowcast team, our engineer and editor, Brandon Durham, and marketing specialist, Jean Ann Miller, and producer, Sister Beth Murphy. A final thank you, brothers Alfred, Edwin, Eliakim, and Michael. I know that you are going on retreat next week in preparation for your first profession of vows as missionary oblates. We are grateful to God and to you for that generosity. The flow of Flowcast is an acronym for the life of the world, a reminder that all of us are called to imitate Jesus' self-giving for the life of the world. It's been my pleasure to host this episode. Once again, I am Sister Rose Miriam Schulte, signing off until the next time.